morning. It's Monday, October 6, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, a document found during a raid on a senior IS commander's home appears to reveal the group's desire to obtain Iran's nuclear weapons, commit ethnic cleansing, and damage Iranian industry. The first Ebola patient in the United States has slipped into critical condition, causing mass concern about the spread of the virus in the state of Texas, where he was first diagnosed. Now, will she or won't she has been already asked 1 million times about Hillary Clinton, but is America even ready for a woman president remains to be seen. We'll take a closer look. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin with our main topic of the day. The Islamic State organization keeps on terrorizing the news headlines. This past weekend, British aid worker Alan Henning was feared dead as the militant group released a video of his beheading, blaming his killing on the UK for joining the US-led coalition against the group. In addition, headlines in the British media revealed a document supposedly found during a raid on a senior ISIS commander's home, which appears to reveal the group's desire to obtain nuclear weapons, commit ethnic cleansing, and damage Iranian industry. Now, the manifesto-style document contained a bizarre list of plans, including an aim to destroy Iran's famous caviar industry and damage its carpet industry by flooding the market with Afghan carpet makers. No, we're not making this up. Now, the document was supposedly taken during a raid in March from an ISIS commander's home by Iraqi special forces. Security officials believe it to be authentic, and it is allegedly written by Abdullah Ahmed al-Mashandi, one of the most senior members of the militant group. To examine all of this, we are joined in studio by Dr. Brandon Friedman. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Friedman from the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. And before we delve into this, let's take a look at the latest report about the battle against the Islamic State organization.
The siege of the border town of Kobani, known in Arabic as Ain al-Arab, continues. The jihadist militants of the Islamic State terrorist organization are inching ever closer to the predominantly Kurdish town, which lies in Syrian territory close to the border with Turkey. IS has been making use of tanks as well as artillery to bombard Kobani as its advance rolls on. While Kurdish militia fighters have vowed, quote, never-ending resistance, IS has boasted that its fighters would be praying in Kobani's mosques before the end of the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha. The international community has pinned much of its hopes on Turkey, whose parliament authorized military intervention last Thursday. Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu has insisted that Turkey does not want Kobani to fall and pointed to the country's acceptance of over 180,000 Kurdish refugees. Still, he stopped short of promising a military incursion into Syrian territory, noting that intervening in Kobani would lead to pressure for interventions elsewhere. Meanwhile, IS has received an unexpected boost from a friendly organization, the Pakistani Taliban, which has for years engaged in a struggle against both the Pakistani government and the United States, issued the following statement expressing support for IS's efforts. "Oh, our brothers, we are proud of you in your victories. We are with you in your happiness and your sorrow. In these troubled days, we call for your patience and stability, especially now that all your enemies are united against you. Please put all your rivalries behind you. All Muslims in the world have great expectations of you. We are with you. We will provide you with fighters and with every possible support." This kind of expression of support and perhaps intent ties in with the West's worst fears concerning a global alliance of radical Islamic organizations. Indeed, the similarities between the threats posed by the Taliban and IS were among the factors which led to a recent decision by U.S. President Barack Obama to extend the presence of U.S. troops in Afghanistan beyond the end of the year, in hopes of preventing the kind of chaos which has been witnessed in Iraq. How long they will remain there remains to be seen.
We are also joined, pardon me, we also joined via Skype from London, UK by Jonathan Sashardati, I-24 News correspondent there. Jonathan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to begin with the recent, gruesome tale coming out of the Islamic State organization. That is the beheading, the supposed beheading. I don't know if that video has been authenticated yet, of the British civilian. Reactions in the United Kingdom to that?
Obviously, the reactions here have been of extreme sorrow. Yesterday, there was a multi-faith memorial service for Mr. Henning, in which the Archbishop of Manchester declared that he had died a martyr. The British hostage, Alan Henning, was 47 years old and was kidnapped back in December when he traveled to Syria as part of an aid convoy called Aid for Syria. And at that memorial service, members of different faiths paid their tributes to him. He was a Salford minicab driver, kidnapped along with others in his convoy, but all the Muslims in the convoy were released, and he was kept, according to Aid for Syria. So reports from others held there, hostage with him, have started to come out now as well, which have said that he was subjected to nighttime interrogation sessions by a masked British ISIS terrorist. And then obviously in that rather gruesome video, which is now becoming too regular an occurrence for us to be seeing them on the news, he was beheaded.
Yeah, and Jonathan, do stay with us, because more news coming out of actually Britain when it comes to the Islamic organization, and that's this supposed document that was reported in a British newspaper over the weekend about the Islamic State. Also, well, a list of wishes, if you may. And, do stay with us. Dr. Friedman of the Moshe Dayan Center. This is a document that supposedly intelligence analysts say is authenticated. It claims that the Islamic organization has a list of goals, one of them acquiring Iran's nuclear weapons. Is that even something viable?
I think we have to keep in mind that the Islamic State has pursued a very sophisticated campaign of propaganda. And so while the document may very well be authentic, the fact that it's fallen into the hands of the West may not be a coincidence. Right. And so that has to be taken into consideration. I think in terms of the immediate threat, the idea of a nuclear Islamic State is still some time away. It's more of a distant, long-term threat. I think the more immediate threat is what's happening on the ground today, what's happening in Kobani, what's happening in, across western Iraq. I mean, those are the concerns that really we should be thinking about, because the longer it takes to defeat the Islamic State, the bigger threat it becomes. It's moving from victory to victory, and to me, that's the most immediate threat. Obviously, talk of a nuclear Islamic State, the idea of weaponizing chemicals and presenting a mass threat to the West is something that should be taken seriously. But frankly, it's probably a little bit of time away. And so I see this as part of the ongoing, continued, sophisticated propaganda we've seen from the Islamic State. But in reality, I think the immediate threat is what's happening on the ground.
What's happening on the ground. And speaking of what's happening on the ground, Jonathan Sashadati with us from London. Prime Minister Cameron was had some very harsh talk, sounding a little bit like Obama there. What was the reaction of the British administration when it comes to, the UK citizen Hanning that, was the latest victim? What did the administration say?
David Cameron has said that the perpetrators of these crimes need to be hunted down and they need to be destroyed. He's spoken very strongly about it. And even in relation to the Sunday Times' reporting of these nuclear plans and the like, we had, just before that was revealed, British Home Secretary Theresa May speaking at the Conservative Party conference just a few days ago, saying that should ISIS consolidate power in Syria and Iraq, it would become the world's first truly terrorist state, risking terrorist acquisition of chemical, biological, or even nuclear weapons. So whether or not this document is far-fetched or more of a manifesto of intentions spanning over, say, 100 years into the future, it is clear that the government here is taking very seriously the threats that a jihadi Islamist force like this could in fact continue in this rise to power and ascendancy that it's had in the region and seize hold of those kind of weapons. And that's something that does make them very afraid. Furthermore, there's also the increased terror threat here, where politicians are afraid and preparing for potential terrorist threats on British soil, not just from returning jihadis who have left Britain to go and fight in Syria and Iraq with ISIS, but also from those who have been appealed to by ISIS fighters on videos without even having left Great Britain. It's already believed that an attack, the style of the killing of Lee Rigby, the soldier here who was beheaded in the streets of London, has been foiled. And there are other attacks like that which the security services are constantly monitoring now that our terror threat level has been raised only some weeks and months ago to a higher level. So really, this is something that the British government is keeping its eyes on very carefully, and it's taking every precaution it can, it says, in order to keep British citizens safe here, as well as getting involved in the engagement in Iraq and Syria.
Very much so, and it has joined the coalition, but we have to remind viewers, of course, obviously this is a coalition that currently is mostly fighting just from the air. But you had something to say before I ask you a question.
First of all, I think with respect to the British government, I think the objective is to prevent the Islamic State from consolidating power to the extent where it can become a legitimate terrorist state. But it's certainly not the first.
Right.
You know, the Islamic Republic of Iran, people forget, was also the sponsor of terrorist acts, particularly in the early 1980s against the United States Marines in Lebanon and several other episodes.
Great point. No, very much so. So I'm wondering, and again, you know, of course we have Jonathan with, I'm wondering because we're looking at this and these beheading videos are awful and clearly now directed, you know, straight to the United Kingdom. But, you know, also beheadings in the Middle East, I hate to say it, are also not something new. And somehow this is perpetrating this reaction from the Western world as if this is the biggest foe ever to be encountered by the Western world. Why?
I think there's a great book that was written, and many people believe it's become sort of the propaganda guide for the Islamic State. The translation of the title is The Management of Savagery, and it was translated by an American scholar named Will McCants. And it discusses how the Islamic State effectively uses tactics like these, you know, videotape or video public beheadings as a tool with which to, first of all, strike fear in the hearts of the West. But, you know, it's also galvanized the West to some degree, and it's hard to imagine the West sort of coming together in the limited sense that it has up till now without those kinds of
videos. Jonathan, one last question to you. You're still staying with me, Dr. Friedman. One last question to you, though. I mean, with all this campaign waged, actually also by the British government to protect, but also convince the British people that, you know, this is a foe worth and that needs to be fought right now. But still, is there an inclination, would you say, within British citizens to say, if the government comes out and says we have to send troops on the ground to stop this, or is there still, you know, a resistance because it's known that, you know, in the UK, especially after Iraq 2003, there is no desire to be entangled on the ground in the Middle East?
That's right. I think there's still a war weariness here, and we have even, never mind the British public, we have Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, who's come out and said that he would block an extension of British involvement to include even airstrikes on Syria. So we're very far away from the idea of British troops on the ground. And of course, as you've just said, the idea of beheadings is not particularly new. The idea of a terrorist state is not new with the Islamic Republic of Iran. So even hearing Theresa May and David Cameron speaking in these apparently strong terms about these things doesn't actually instill all British people with a great deal of confidence, when many of them think that the government are quite late to the party, so to speak. They are just realizing this sort of threat, certainly on the public level, when there has actually been an existing threat for many decades. And many would say that the threat of nuclear Iran is one which is much higher than any threat posed by ISIS and its potential continued rise over coming weeks, months and years. And the British government, again, seems to perhaps be backtracking on its hardline on that, when we saw David Cameron just recently even meeting with the Iranian president over at the UN. And these sorts of things are causing fear in the hearts and minds of some here who believe that the government may be talking tough when it comes to ISIS, but it might in fact be softening its stance when it comes to Iran, which poses, as I said, that far greater threat.
Now, interesting. Jonathan Sashadati from London, UK, I-24 news correspondent. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Friedman, again to you, if we're listening to this, and this is theorizing that, you know, all of a sudden Iran is also, you know, in the line of fire of ISIS, and maybe that helps Western states actually strike a deal with them. But of course, we are theorizing. You said, though, that, you know, especially the news this morning, if we're listening, we're hearing about Kobani, that ISIS is pushing, you know, the Islamic State organization is pushing there. It doesn't seem like the airstrikes are working. We're getting more videos coming out like that, reports of documents purporting, you know, to take over Iran, take over the world. Can this be fought actually without troops on the ground by the Western world? You
know, interestingly, the most recent report I saw this morning was that the U.S. had deployed AH-64 Apache helicopters to attack, you know, the Islamic State on the ground, which is a very interesting development because it's an acknowledgement that the airstrikes, you know, from fighter jets, you know, flying very high above, are having a limited effect, and so you're beginning to see a change of tactics.
Apaches are getting closer to the ground. Yes,
right. So they're getting closer, but here's really the issue. Frankly, the Shi'i groups fighting in Iraq are fighting to stabilize the Shi'i part of Iraq. The Kurds are going to be fighting to stabilize the Kurdish part of Iraq. The question is, who's taking the fight to the Islamic State? And unless you take the fight to them, you're allowing them to do exactly what the British government is concerned about, which is allowing them to consolidate their control over Sunni Syria, Sunni Iraq, and to create a de facto state there. So the question is, where's the force going to come from that is going to take the fight to the Islamic State? And that, to me, remains a big question. There was an interesting report yesterday that the Jordanian special forces are going to play an important role fighting the Islamic State in Syria. Now, that, to me, I haven't seen it substantiated anywhere else apart from this single report, but it's interesting. And it addresses the question of who's going to be doing the fighting against the Islamic State where they are. Right. Because the Kurds are not going to want to extend beyond their territory. Exactly. The Shia groups are not going to want to extend beyond their territory. So what the U.S. airstrikes are allowing to happen right now is, in fact, allowing the Iranians to consolidate their position in Iraq, allowing the Kurds to consolidate their stateness and autonomy in Kurdish Iraq. But the question is, what's happening in Sunni Iraq and Sunni Syria? And that's a big question mark.
Because everybody's basically finding their own little territory, and at the end of the day, it usually takes a third-party power to come in and try and do that, or somebody from the ground.
Right. And so what you have is, this is an issue of time. Yeah. And the longer that nothing happens, time passes, the Islamic State moves from victory to victory, their chances of consolidating power increase.
Okay, and definitely, as you said, this is something that we're going to be covering throughout the next several weeks, if not months, I suppose. Dr. Friedman from the Moshe Dayan Center in Tel Aviv University, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
On to our next topic. Sweden has announced that it will recognize the state of Palestine and has become the first member of the European Union to do so. In response, the Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman will summon the Swedish ambassador for a talk today. We are hoping to speak with the Swedish ambassador to Israel later today as well, possibly before that crucial meeting. But first, let's take a look at the following report that recaps the latest about this debacle.
Of the 193 member states of the United Nations, 134 have already recognized the state of Palestine. But Sweden's announcement it joins this group is a significant step as it becomes the first member of the European Union to do so.
We believe that this is an important step towards a two-state solution. We hope that this will inspire and hopefully give some new energy into the negotiations. And we, of course, know and expect that there will be both applause and criticism, but we will engage in a dialogue and in talks with our partners and other countries from both camps.
This announcement was not accepted peacefully by neither the U.S. nor Israel.
We believe international recognition of a Palestinian state is premature. We certainly support Palestinian statehood, but it can only come through a negotiated outcome, a resolution of final status issues, and mutual recognition by both parties.
On its behalf, the Israeli Foreign Affairs Ministry immediately issued an unequivocal statement saying it would summon Sweden's ambassador to Israel to meet with Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman.
And it's very, very strange that Prime Minister of Sweden spoke about Palestinian issue and forgot completely about real challenges of the Middle East, like civilian war in Syria.
The diplomatic chaos triggered the Swedish embassy in Israel to publish a clarification statement saying that the conflict between Israel and Palestine can only be resolved through a two-state solution, the Swedish Prime Minister said, negotiated in accordance with the principles of international law. The two-state solution requires mutual recognition and a will to coexist peacefully. Consequently, Sweden will recognize the state of Palestine, the Prime Minister concluded. As for now, the calming message will not cancel sure to be tense conversation at Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Now, we are joined from Tel Aviv, outside the Swedish embassy, by Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent. Tal, good morning to you. What is actually the reaction of the Israeli government? How are they taking this announcement from Sweden about the recognition of Palestine as a state?
Well, even though yesterday there was a conversation between Prime Minister Lopfen and the head of the Israeli opposition, Yitzhak Buzi Herzog, the head of the Labour Party, in this conversation, the Prime Minister did try to maybe calm down the Israeli, we might even define it as hysteria. He told them the recognition is not happening tomorrow morning. But in any case, the move did alarm many in Jerusalem, and we could see quite a swift response from both the Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who immediately slammed the new Prime Minister for not understanding the region, and summoning the ambassador in just a few hours at 12 p.m. To to the foreign ministry to clarify these comments. And the Israeli Prime Minister himself also yesterday summoned the press, did publish a special statement talking about how unilateral moves are not helpful. But the fact is that it's not about Sweden. It's about the concern of the downfall from Sweden. As you mentioned, Sweden is the first EU country to recognize Palestine. Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania did recognize that, but that was before they joined the European Union. So from Israel's point of view, it's very alarming to have the fact that maybe this could create a slippery slope of other European countries recognizing Palestine in a unilateral way. And at the timing, as the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, is trying to gain support for his move at the UN Security Council, which, of course, Israel opposes.
Israel opposes. And, of course, do stay with us. Tal Shalev outside the Swedish ambassador's home in Tel Aviv, the embassy in Tel Aviv. We were also joined via Skype by former ambassador to Sweden, former Israeli ambassador to Sweden, Tzvi Mazel. Tzvi, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you know, early at the 21st century, you served as Israeli ambassador to Sweden. Now, what is behind this announcement? I know the Swedes are trying to play it down, but this is almost something as if, you know, sticking a finger in one's eye, so to speak. Do we have any idea why this is happening now?
Yes, absolutely. One should understand the foreign policy of the Social Democrat Swedish party. In the 70s, when Olof Palme became prime minister, it changed the ideology of the party. It took Sweden from the Western camp into the non-aligned countries, close to Soviet Union at that time. And since then, Sweden has become the most important supporter of third world countries, and we, Israel, are considered as a colonial force occupying a foreign land. This is behind it. This is the ideology behind it. So since then, since the 70s, the Social Democrat Party was in power most of the time, and it was leading a hostile, and I repeat again, hostile policy against Israel. So now, in the last few weeks, when we knew, it was almost sure that the social democracy is going to come back to power, we knew that something bad was going to happen, and it happened immediately at the beginning when the new prime minister of Sweden said, yes, we are going to recognize immediately the Palestinian state. It does mean for us that Mr. Stefan Löfven, the new prime minister of Sweden, would like to impose a solution on Israel. It's very, very bad, and I don't see any change and in that stand, because this is the permanent policy of the social democracy.
But I mean, if a policy is such, and to begin with, a quick question to you: if, as ambassador of Israel in Sweden at the time, was it a tough job trying to basically PR, to do the PR job on behalf of the state of Israel? How hard was that?
You know, I was there between 2002 and 2004 at the height of the second Intifada, when suicide bombers were exploding themselves in buses, in the restaurant, and they killed at that time about 1,000 Israeli citizens. Right. Yes, right. Just like that. And every time there was something, there was an event, Anna Lindh, the late foreign minister of Sweden, was condemning Israel. We are responsible for everything. And the press was against us in Sweden, all the press, all the important media, and also the church, yes? The Archbishop of Hammer, in charge of the Church of Sweden, was attacking Israel every time. All political parties, especially from the left. So we have a big problem with Sweden. They don't accept the reality in the Middle East. Right. They don't understand that in the Middle East you cannot solve problems just by diplomacy and dialogue. This is a big difference between us and them.
No, I know. I think that's a problem that the entire Western world doesn't understand about the Middle East. Following on that, as our diplomatic correspondent said, and as somebody who served in Europe as an ambassador for Israel, is there a real danger now that this is a trickle effect, that when it comes to the European Union, if Sweden goes ahead and does something like that, that the rest of the European unions are going to now basically decide to unilaterally recognize Palestine as a state? And how does that bode for Israel?
It's a big question mark. You are right to ask this question. Listen, when you take responsible countries like France, Germany, Italy, Spain, I hope that they will continue in the position of principle that the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians can be solved only through direct negotiation between them and us. Not otherwise, not by imposing a solution. So there is a difference between Sweden, which is traditionally has been hostile to Israel, and the other countries. But still, our position in Europe is not very good because of the media, because some other problems. But we hope that the important countries in Europe will continue with the positive stand on this issue.
That can only be a hope. Tzvi Mazel, thank you for being with us. Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent. Really quickly, too, what exactly can Avigdor Lieberman do in a conversation with the, Swedish ambassador? I mean, this is basically just you sort of wag the finger at him, no?
Well, it's basically the talk is actually with the head of the European department in the foreign ministry. It will probably be a quite diplomatic talk, try to explain, try to see, and basically try to postpone the Swedish recognition as much as possible. So, of course, it doesn't create this downfall at the timing we were talking about when Abbas is trying to gain support for his UN Security Council resolution. So that will be one thing. Today, the Yediot Achronot, the biggest daily in Israel, has a cartoon of Lieberman putting the Swedish ambassador on a low chair. That, of course, is a reference to an incident with the Turkish ambassador a few years ago. But I don't think it will be that harsh. There is, from the Swedish government, there are voices looking to see this in a constructive way, trying to tell the Israeli government, we're not doing it now, but move forward with negotiations, get back to negotiations. And that is something many European countries would probably stand behind. So that is something that should be clarified between the foreign ministry and the ambassador. But yes, definitely, it's going to be a tense day. It won't be an easy discussion because Lieberman is definitely not known for many of his diplomatic incidents. He doesn't really have the best diplomatic style, so it's going to be quite tense. We'll, of course, report and update throughout the day.
No, definitely. Tal Shalev's I-24 News diplomatic correspondent there outside the Swedish embassy in Tel Aviv. And as we said, a diplomatic tension brewing between the two countries. When we get back, about 10 people are at high risk after coming into contact with the American Ebola patient Thomas Eric Duncan, whose condition has deteriorated from serious to critical over the weekend. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. It is Monday, October 6, 2014, and it is a good day. You know why? Because I say hello and good morning to my anchor, to the one constant thing in my life, more than my husband, to Anthony Grant.
Your work husband.
My work husband.
Yes,
exactly,
let's make that distinction lest we get into any kind of fracas at home.
Anyway. Who joins me to give me the news you missed while scanning the headlines.
Now, here's something that you might not have missed if you were in Israel. Now, Yom Kippur fell over the weekend, of course, on Saturday.
I know.
And if you notice, the air was very clear. And, of course, Jerusalem Post reports the air pollution levels plunged 99% in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And wow.
It just shows us. And you know what? I noticed it this year because it's not just the quiet. Okay, it's not just all of a sudden the serenity of it all. You go outside, you look like, oh my God.
You can breathe.
You can breathe. Look at the sky, which shows you, which goes to show. I think we need to have more, well, maybe not
electric buses.
Yeah, more electric buses, less cars.
Because it makes you wonder what you're subjecting your lungs to on any given day. So, you know, kudos to that headline because more days like that would be great. On a more somber note, actually, I-24 News, our own website here, reported that since August, Israel has intercepted multiple attempts for weapons smuggling material to Gaza by sea. Which is quite, you know, maybe expected, alarming, but fascinating in a way. And one of a senior Israeli naval commander said, I love this quote, the terrorists still have one big smuggling tunnel, and it's called the Mediterranean. which is true.
It's true, and again, as we see at the I-24 News website headline, I think the frightening thing about this, and if we're looking at, so also as as civilians of this region, as people who live here, this has been the third war, I think, in the last 6 years between Gaza and Israel, and the second it ends, the ammunition starts flowing again. And
they also say that every few days or something like that, or they periodically, Hamas is firing missiles into the sea to test out new projectiles.
It makes you wonder what was achieved in the last operation, and a very disturbing, depressing.
Speaking of military toys, so to speak, up in Lebanon, Daily Star Beirut, Lebanon is to get Russian helicopters and air defense. Russia isn't going to be giving it to them, though. They're going to have to buy it, and they're going to do is they're going to take that $1 billion grant from Saudi Arabia and Kaching in Moscow. Well, they were going to be helping to arm the Lebanese army thanks to Russian military equipment. So again, Lebanon does seem to be armed to the teeth these days.
And then it's frightening in that respect, and also interesting connection that you made that they're taking the Saudi money, they're going to buy Russian aircraft with that.
Not American.
Not American, exactly. It's signaling, we are trying to get the second biggest, leader, so to speak, back into the Middle East.
Which never really left if you look at Syria, because Assad is still...
Also, exactly, Assad is still with Russia. And, of course, Russia we have reported in the past, is trying to etch in back into Egypt in many ways, has tried over the course of the last several months. So it's this chessboard that is the Middle East very much changing in the last, year.
Yes. And also, I think we touched on this before, but just quickly, a headline from The Guardian saying that airstrikes against ISIS are not working, according to Syrian Kurds. So there's that. A big that.
There's the big, and there's that. No, how very true. No, and again, when you see a headline like that, it makes you wonder, and I'm theorizing, is, the Kurds obviously, I'm sure, want foreign intervention and help in their fight against
Seems
ISIS.
like many would like that option to be exercised,
and you see that, and either it's a campaign more and more of the West to try and convince the people, respectively, in the United States and the UK to send troops on the ground, which, if it happens, my God, has nothing changed.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Just the names and the faces. Yes.
Yeah.
Things are changing in the Koreas, North and South Korea.
Yes.
Kim Jong-un apparently has really fallen off the radar as the two Koreas agree to talk. This is the Independent reports.
Right.
Of course, North and South Korea have agreed to resume talks, but where is Kim Jong-un? We know that he broke his ankles recently. Apparently,
or do we?
Yes. He had gained, there was a weight issue involved. That's...
It's all these rumors.
They are circulating and swirling.
They're circulating the rumor.
And
I know.
He sent his number 2 man, apparently, Hwang Pyong-so, to the Asian Games in Incheon.
I have to applaud you for the pronunciation. Yes?
Yes, well, once in a while it happens. They get a name right. And he was there, very powerful guy, but Kim Jong-un was not. But again, what does it mean?
Who knows? Yes. And at the end of the day, nobody knows because nobody's allowed to report from there. But it's the rumors, and sometimes I find the rumors coming out of North Korea. Because the ankle thing I'll buy, but there's also the haircut thing the other day.
It's the Swiss cheese addiction.
Exactly. Some stories that come out of there are very hard to substantiate. Yes.
Exactly. The Hajj selfie controversy continues.
Yes, thank you. That was just...
I mean,
what?
The Hajj, they're causing controversy among conservative Muslims, but hashtag Hajj selfies is quite popular on Twitter. People are posting their selfie pictures from the holy site areas there in Mecca.
Okay.
Stirring a bit of, I would say, low-frequency controversy amongst the more conservative elements of the Muslim faith. But again, there's so many people involved. There's so many cameras. How can you even prevent the selfies from? It's a selfie world.
It is a selfie world, but oh my God. Although if there's a way of banning taking selfie anywhere and everywhere, I'm actually for it.
I mean, it does chip away a little bit, you might say, at the sanctity of the event. That's what the detractors would say.
Or in the sanity of people. I mean, we can agree that a selfie, isn't that just like it's the epitome of narcissism.
Yeah.
It is.
But it's good for Samsung.
It is good for Samsung and
Apple,
iPhone.
But
okay.
so,
and we like anything that's good for them. Sure.
On a more serious note, The Express up in UK says that the UK government is being urged to tackle Gulf states funding Islamic terrorism. Nothing maybe so new here except for the fact that they're singling out Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Saying that private individuals from Qatar and Saudi Arabia are funding ISIS militants. So this is quite a quixotic a mix of accusations, you might say.
Right.
And they're saying 3 senior figures in the British government are saying that Gulf leaders are basically turning a blind eye as millions of pounds are being donated by wealthy citizens to militants abroad, such as in parts of Iraq and Syria, and that these regimes should be forced to stop the fundraising before being allowed to invest in United Kingdom real estate and construction projects.
Yeah, good luck on that one.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, let's call a spade a spade.
On a happier note.
On a happy note. Shoot.
Boston finally gets its Edgar Allan Poe statue.
Well, thank God for that.
Yesterday. Yes. Yes.
Wait,
now
people, the Edgar Allan Poe feud is over.
It's over. You know, he did not really like Boston writers. He thought that they were sort of they looked down on him. One of America's greatest poets, of course.
No, definitely. What was the foe?
I read Poe daily.
Yeah, you do?
No, I don't. But never a crow does pass without me thinking about that raven. And now...
Beautiful.
It's true.
Beautifully said.
Birds.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
yes,
now there's a big bird in bronze or something sitting there in Boston Common, and it's good for Boston. It'll be a good tourist attraction. It's not just Revolutionary War history in Boston, but also Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, and a little bit of culture, and I'm all for it. Tony, I got to tell you, it's the breeze of intellectual sanity that you bring into my life every single morning.
Do what I can,
yes.
But we'll bring you more soon.
Do stay with us as we move on to the next story of the day. On to our next topic. The first Ebola patient that was diagnosed in the United States took an unfortunate turn for the worse, slipping from serious to critical condition over the weekend in a Dallas hospital. Now, 10 people also who came into close contact with him and are considered at high risk have been supposedly, we're not sure, put into isolation. The news has spread fear across the United States, across Texas, where Duncan has been in a closed-off ward since being diagnosed. We are joined in studio by I-24 News' Ruthie Sinai. Good morning to you,
Good morning.
Ruthie. And also joining us from Texas is Rachel Magruder, legal assistant at a refugee service of Texas. And Rachel, good morning to you.
Hi there. How are y'all?
We're good. First of all, lovely to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. Formerly of the United States myself, I got to say, this is frightening stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Ebola is very serious.
It's very serious stuff. Now, what are the reactions? I mean, are people in and around Texas? I mean, I'm not saying you particularly. You seem pretty happy, and I'm glad to see that. But,
yes.
Are people in and around Texas, any kind of precautions being, handed down by, the government, by the by authorities? What do we know about Duncan where he is? What do we know about the people that have been in close contact with him? Where are they?
Absolutely. So you said there were 10. There's actually an estimate that his circle of connection was about 100 people.
Oh, God.
If you attach on all the people that those very close connections also connected to. And so there are around 20, let's say, okay, there's 4 who were in total seclusion, and they're not allowed to leave their apartment for about 20 more days. And then the apartment complex in which he was visiting, that whole apartment complex has multiple press conferences and meetings with presentations on sanitation, on safety precautions, stuff like that. But as far as the rest of Dallas goes, what we're getting is media. We're getting media coverage and a lot of things that are oftentimes more blown up, like there are still plenty of people who still think it's an airborne disease, which is not true.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're basically getting people like me telling you what's going on, which is a frightening thought. But, that said, so nothing from the authorities. When you say it's supposedly 100 people that came into close contact with him, have those 100 people approximately, have they been identified? Do we know, or does the media know, dare I ask?
The close contact they're saying is about 20, and then of those 20, the ones that they have had close contact are being also considered in this 100 number. But of course, that includes like children who go to elementary schools, and then all of a sudden, the elementary schools are being quarantined and deep cleaned and stuff like that. So that's, to say that we're taking extra safety precautions would definitely be true. But there are definitely concerns people, and then there's people who joke about it. When somebody coughs, they scream Ebola. I mean, both sides of the scale.
No, I mean, humor, as we all know, is very, very important at times of stress. Finally, I understand that you yourself are working also at a refugee service, you know, in Texas. Did you know Duncan? You know, the patient who I think he came from. Is it Liberia? No, it's Liberia. Or do you know of him, or people, you know, who were in close contact with him?
I'm in very close contact with the Liberian refugee community. I don't know Duncan or his family myself, but Refugee Services of Texas, we resettled plenty of African refugees, also from Iraq, Burma, people all over the world. And the apartment complex that he was visiting is one of the 3 apartment complexes in Dallas that we resettle families. And so we're there a lot. We're in close communication with the people who live there. You know, no special attention is being paid right now to any one group of people. We're making sure that everybody in the apartment complex is being safe and understands the safety precautions. We know that there's language barriers and, you know, cultural barriers for sanitation and how to take care of a serious issue like this, of course.
But Rachel, first of all, thank you so much for joining us on this late hour there in Texas. And of course, you know, keep healthy is what we can say here. And hopefully, you know, the authorities will give out more information rather than just people like us. Thank you, Rachel. Ruthie Sinai, I-24 News senior editor. Okay, this is, you know, it's frightening stuff, but it seems, and this is not the first time that I've heard over the course of the last several days, that, you know, people in the state of Texas aren't getting much information of what exactly to do. Where does it stand when something like this happens?
Well, first of all, you know, the people who came into close contact with this guy have been quarantined at an undisclosed location. The woman, his fiance, the woman he was coming to marry, has, you know, her name, nobody knows her name. Well, somebody knows her name, but her name has not been made public so as not to, you know, get people and gawkers and so on, you know, staring and so on. It's also her kids. She's got kids. It's also her nephews. They were all in the same apartment with Duncan. You know, the big mess seems to have been that of the hospital to which he went initially when he was feeling unwell.
Right. What happened there? There was a misdiagnosis?
Yeah, he went to a Dallas hospital. He was complaining of abdominal pains and high fever, and they basically sent him home. Now, the minute he said he'd come from Liberia, this should have set off some sort of warning among the health care people in the hospital, and obviously it didn't, and they sent him back home, which is, you know, obviously the big a big no-no. The other problem, of course, is the fact that the incubation period is somewhat long.
20 days?
It's up to 21 days. So in fact, people might have been infected, and you know, we won't know, or they won't know about it for another
2 weeks.
Yeah,
or something,
2 weeks
which
or
is
so.
a frightening thing.
Yeah,
and finally, real quickly, when it comes to, I mean, in Africa, it's moving in a rapid pace. It's frightening.
Right.
It's not the, you know, United States is not Africa. But at the end of the day, when you look at something like that, I mean, you know, and the way the media and the authorities are dealing with it in the United States, can anything else be done, or it's just, you know, it's just a waiting period? That's the one thing that I'm wondering.
Well, it's a waiting period, and it's really getting people to be very aware, you know, if they come into contact with anybody who's been in contact, etc. You know, luckily for us, and this is sort of, you know, a sad commentary on our society in general, that when it was happening in Africa, nobody was too concerned.
Right.
And the minute it, you know, God forbids, touches down on Western
the white man's
soil,
land.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, everybody is in a panic. The flip side of it, of course, is that the Americans are mobilizing internationally to help in Africa. Again, I don't know how much of it is for the Africans, you know, benefit, and how much is to prevent it coming their way. But
Ruthie, thank you for being with us. When we get back, is America ready for a female president? The fall TV schedule believes it is. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. It is Monday, October 6, 2014. It's I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be, and I will tell you why. Because, yes, it is indeed the only place where Tony Grand gives you the viral spiral that is the web review. I made up that line.
With all the Ebola stuff going on,
and I'm going with the viral spiral.
I'm thinking, okay, but all right, I'll let you get away with it this morning because we're talking about phones.
Oh.
Yeah, there is a viral spiral going on here because of that whole thing about Bendgate.
Right.
You know, does the iPhone 6 Plus bend in a tight pocket? Of course.
Bendgate.
Bendgate, yes. Well, of course, whether or not that's actually true.
That's a 4. Yeah.
That's a 4. Yeah, come on. Samsung, of course, is all over this. You know, any little chink in Apple's armor, they are all over it. So according to Huffington Post, they've made this video on their own site that shows, makes like a butt robot with mom jeans to prove that its phones don't bend. And you can see it on their site, which is causing a bit of a buzz. I don't know if we have a clip. Having a clip may or may not be a good thing, but if we have it, we can show it.
The clip of what?
Of the robot sitting on the Samsung, proving that it does not bend. So
right.
I don't know.
Right. We have the clip. Let's take a look at the clip.
Yeah, that's on Samsung.com.
No, that's on Samsung.com. And I think another thing, not
humor.
only does it not bend, but you can do crunches on your Samsung, and nothing will happen.
All right, so I guess we're all going to be buying Samsung.
Yes.
I got to stop plugging Samsung.
I mean, listen, women of large thighs, myself included, get a Samsung.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's not a problem if you're Nick Jonas, because, of course, he was setting the internet on fire with his racy pictures for Flaunt magazine. And he has been doing... Now, Nick Jonas, of course, of the Jonas Brothers.
Yes. I even know who they are.
Whose last hit was...
Right.
Okay. Anyway, the singer is set to star in DirecTV's...
You're so mean.
I love this guy.
Okay,
a 10-episode drama called Kingdom, and he says that he would consider going completely naked on the show if it will help ratings.
Or if it would help his career.
Yeah. Anyway, we have to say he does have chiseled abs and an inspiration to those of us like myself who refuse to set foot in a gym.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Anyway.
I mean, I'm looking at those, well, yeah.
Well,
I still don't remember his last song.
Anyway, he does seem to have like more together than Justin Bieber.
True. A little bit more together, less tattoos.
But there's a lot of internet clicking going on, as you can see there, for click for more pics of Nick. A lot of clicking is happening because that's one of the less racy photos.
Really?
Yeah.
It gets racier.
It does get racier. There's some NSFW type of thing out there, but tastefully done.
Okay.
Not safe for Washington, D.C.
You know the...
Anyway, speaking of, let me just move on here to Washington, D.C. It brings me to Michael Phelps.
Yes.
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps.
Going into rehab.
Really?
A 6-week stint. Of course, he was...
And that's because of the drunk driving thing?
The driving under the influence the other day in Maryland. But I was thinking, what else is there to do in Maryland?
Very true. I've been, and you're right. And if you're in Maryland, yes.
You kind of want to drink to forget that you're actually there.
Those shows, exactly.
Yeah, not while driving. Don't drink while driving.
Don't ever do that. And again, this is my feeling about Phelps. And I think, and you're totally right, nobody should drink while driving, but this is a kid who spent his entire childhood training so hard.
Rockets to fame.
Rockets to fame, is very young, has so many... Let him let loose a little bit. But good for him.
Yeah. So, he's been, all the social media is very, very open about that. So, interesting item. There's a new book out called Wild in America. Wild in America. It's not about Kim Wilde.
Yeah.
It's about Oscar Wilde's 1882 lecture tour of America in 1882 before he got famous. And this book poses the theory that actually he was one of the first celebrities because of his attempts to make himself famous just for the sake of going to the right parties and that sort of thing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so sort of like he predated Kim Kardashian and all that is what the reviewer is saying. And it's kind of true because he kind of made... By dressing flamboyantly and I don't say pretending, but making himself to be this sort of academic expert on aesthetics, which he kind of wasn't, but he had a way with words, as we all know.
Okay.
He made himself famous, but when he got back to England, he was like a total superstar.
The only thing is, to really, really go all the way back and blame poor Oscar Wilde, one of the greatest, maybe, presents, gifts.
Kim Kardashian is his fault.
Yeah, I think, that's just.
But, when you think about it, look at that picture. I mean, even now, that was from a studio session somewhere in New York. I mean, it's quite riveting. Imagine the impact it had on Americans in the 1880s. I mean,
True. I mean, when you look at that, it says it all. That we're still looking about, the fact that we're still looking to be riveted in that same way, and we think that Kim Kardashian wearing that is riveting. The B came out of me.
It's one of her tamer outfits, actually.
Yeah, it is.
It's sheer.
It's sheer. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm wearing a napkin today, but she's wearing an actual tablecloth. Yes.
Well, speaking of icons from the past.
Please, icon past.
Billy Idol.
I used to love Billy Idol.
I still do. And he's got a new memoir out. It's called Dancing with Myself. Of course, his first hit song was Dancing with Myself.
Dancing with Myself, yeah.
He's 58 these days.
Look at him.
He looks
still
fabulous.
Rocking it, loving it.
Yes.
Billy Idol with the lips.
He had the most, the sneer of the year back in 1984 or 5, I think.
It's not really working.
Nobody could sneer like Idol.
Billy Penn's memoir, Dancing with What's in this memoir?
Well, he talks about how the entire Rebel Yell tour was a blur. There could have been some substance issues involved in that.
I don't remember much.
Doesn't remember much. When he went to his label's London office when Rebel Yell was a hit, and they didn't have any posters for the song up, he trashed the office of the record company, then went back to his apartment and trashed his apartment. Sort of. This was. Can we roll that clip of Dancing with Myself? Because I need some visual backup here.
Is there
I don't know if we have it.
Do we have the clip? Yeah.
Down in London town to go. With the record selection.
Yeah. Listen, he's got a
you brought the teenager out of me.
Out too, but who cares? It's the old stuff.
Exactly. I mean, everything comes back. Pretty in Pink.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't it? I know it's like the soundtrack of the Breakfast Club.
We need to have the. What's her name? Pretty in Pink.
Pretty in Pink. That's the Pretty in Pink.
The girl.
Soundtrack.
I can't forget it. I'm blanking out on her name. You've got to help me. Molly Ringwald.
Thank you.
Molly Ringwald Hour. Speaking of bad boys and rebels, Charlie Sheen.
God, he's still around.
Yeah, he's being sued apparently for that dental flap the other day. It was last Thursday.
Finally,
apparently he pulled a knife on his dental hygienist. Now, his publicist says it was not a knife, and he was just having a reaction.
Rather a very sharp pen?
A sharp something, because sexual battery is also involved in the in the complaint.
What was that thing when all the when the scandal came out with him? It was tiger juice, or he was drinking. Do you even remember? When he had this bizarre ranting online. Speaking of viral spirals,
right.
When he went cuckoo for Cocoa Puff, so to speak. And it was something.
Well, apparently he had
effect.
a reaction to nitrous oxide in the dental chair.
Right.
So we'll see how far that lawsuit goes.
And speaking of headlines, there's one that is also moving Israel by storm this morning, including some foreign ministry issues. Right.
Right, we're talking about the Swedish sort of talking about Palestine and backtracking on recognizing it as a state. And of course, that has caused some flap on Facebook. There we have an image there that's been kind of floated around of an IKEA sort of diagram of putting together things Palestinian in that trademark IKEA fashion, because Sweden is IKEA and IKEA is Sweden.
Right. Okay. And I mean, we are actually, I'm glad that you're putting this up, because this is actually a few questions that we are very honored to be joined this morning on the phone by the Swedish ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Carl Magnus Nesser. Ambassador Magnus Nesser, thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And here's a quick question to you. I know that you will be heading to the Israeli Foreign Ministry later today. Is that true, for a meeting with one of the chief staff members of the Israeli Foreign Ministry?
That's correct, yes.
What is expected in that meeting, and what are you planning to say? Because obviously there's going to be some, we're assuming, some finger wagging.
Well, listen, I think what I know is that they would like to talk to me about the Swedish Prime Minister's statement on Friday in the Statement of Government Policy in the Parliament that the Prime Minister made on the first day of the new government. And that included, of course, a section on the Middle East peace process, where the Prime Minister said that Sweden will recognize the state of Palestine. And this, of course, is the topic of our conversation today. But more than that, I cannot say.
Now, were you notified about that speech from Sweden by, by your government before it was made? Because clearly, I'm assuming there was some notion that this was going to, cause trouble, going to cause some reaction from the Israeli government. Were you told in advance?
The parties that formed the new government, and particularly the Social Democratic Party, of course, had a very clear message during the election campaign. And one of the things that the Social Democratic Party said very early on was that if they take power, they would go for a recognition of Palestine. So this is not new, and it was not a surprise that the new government said this on Friday when they took power.
But did you surely understand, as somebody who's stationed here, and I'm assuming that a statement as such will cause friction with the Israeli government. Is there, is there any understanding that, at the end of the day, negotiations is something that should lead to a Palestinian state? But what would be your reaction to what very many people in the Israeli Foreign Ministry are saying is simply a speech that is causing a lot of mayhem, that is actually, trying to, as we said, cause trouble for Israel? I mean, what would be your reaction to that? Which I'm assuming will be asked in the meeting today.
It's very important, I think, to see exactly what the Prime Minister said on Friday. Yes, the government will recognize Palestine, but of course this is done in support of negotiations that would lead to the two-state solution. Negotiations under the principles of international law. It would be in Israel's and Palestine's interest, of course, and clearly the negotiations leading up to the solution of the conflict must guarantee the legitimate demands of both Israelis and Palestinians for national self-determination and security. This is exactly what the Prime Minister said. So the intent, of course, is to be supportive here and to try to get the suspended peace talks back on track.
Ambassador Magnus Nesser, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck on that meeting today. And that's where we conclude the first half hour of this hour. Tony, stick with me. And on to our next topic. For many years, women were not able to own property and certainly couldn't hold leadership roles in their community anywhere around the world, let alone in the United States. In fact, women in America acquired the right to vote only 94 years ago. Today, women are in office taking political action, playing essential roles. Indeed, it's a very exciting time to be a woman in countries around the world, such as Australia, India, Pakistan, France, Ireland, England, Sri Lanka, even Israel, have all embraced the notion of having female presidents and prime ministers. Tragically, the same cannot be said about the United States. So, yes, we're speaking about Hillary. Will she or will she not run is a question we've all asked. But I think the question that is begged to be asked is America ready for a female president? Let's take a look about the supposed, campaign of Hillary Clinton, and is the U.S. ready for her?
After leaving her mark on the world as senator, U.S. Secretary of State, First Lady, and role model for countless women, Hillary Clinton now boasts a new title, the doting grandmother. But will she have time to play patty cake with adorable baby Charlotte, or will she be too busy pursuing yet another title, that of the 2016 Democratic Party presidential candidate? Clinton herself has everyone guessing, at least for the time being.
I am going to be making a decision around probably after the first of the year about whether I'm going to run again or not. But I think the most important question anybody should ask who's thinking about it is not whether you're going to run or whether you're going to win. It is, what's your vision for the country, and can you lead us there?
While Clinton is reluctant to reveal her cards, a new McClatchy-Marist poll now has her as the front-runner for Democratic Party nomination, as the first choice of 64% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents. The television world is also gearing up for the prospect of Madam President Clinton, with powerful female Washington characters flooding the small screen. Joining Olivia Pope and Claire Underwood are Téa Leoni as Secretary of State Elizabeth Faulkner McCord on CBS's new Madam Secretary, and Alfre Woodard as President Constant Payton on NBC's upcoming State of Affairs. 1 month before the 2014 midterm elections, Clinton is in the public eye, lending her support to several Senate and government candidates, while enjoying wide support herself and keeping the speculation game high.
Okay, Karen Kirsch, a resident female investigator, I-24 news editor. Hillary, regardless if she runs or not, I mean, you've made a great point about, it's American culture and pop culture that makes one run for president. And we've seen representations of powerful women in American television, but not in Hollywood, right?
Not in Hollywood at all. And actually, when you look at the TV characters, not on American TV either, there were maybe like 3 or 4 presidents.
Right. Gina Davis was one.
Gina Davis was one in a failing series.
Exactly.
And some in like strange sci-fi.
True.
In the event
world,
where there is like
aliens would pick a woman.
And in Hollywood, I actually went and took a deeper look to try and find if there were female president characters in movies.
And
I found hardly any. Maybe one in some strange movie from '85.
From '85, and I think it wasn't even Glenn Close played the Secretary of State. I've got this trivial knowledge. There was, and I think only one movie called The Candidate for, running as vice president.
Yeah, VPs you have VPs, you have secretaries of state. Presidents you don't. And if we're counting on what they did, we needed a lot of black presidents before Obama got.
Very, 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 very true. Okay, sadly all the time we have because I love chatting with you. So stay with us. Coming up, more culture news, but first, the news. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition. To our next story topic, one that I actually love that we've brought over to our show and to you guys. It's a love story between a Palestinian man and a Jewish woman, and it sounds provocative to begin with, let alone when we're talking about a play in Hebrew that's brought up in an Arabic theater in Haifa. So yes, we are honored to be joined in studio by Quieter Days playwright and director Hannah Eady. Hannah, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thank you, first of all, very much for being with us. Let's start with, Quieter Days, the play. To begin with, you don't live in the Middle East, do you?
No.
Most of the time,
I've been in the U.S. for 35 years.
For 35 years.
I grew up here.
Yeah.
I could still call this home.
It's a beautiful name, and I wish that, and I wish many of us could call it home if we understood what's going on, because your play, this one, was actually written or rehearsed at the time of the last war in this country, right?
Yes.
During the Gaza Protective Edge operation. Tell me about the play.
First of all, I want you to know I did not plan for this to happen during the war. So
of course, we're not blaming you.
Because I am accused in the U.S. that every time I do a play, there's a war.
Do you know that I gave birth during the last war, and I gave birth to my first child in the war before that, and I feel like every time I'm pregnant, there's a war, and every time you write a play, you're going to stop writing, I'm going to stop having children.
Yeah.
Yes, and?
So I would like to believe that I did the play because of the war. Yeah. The play is a love story that at least presents itself as something possible between the two people. It's a Palestinian man and a Jewish woman, and it's a love affair. It's a real love affair, and it is
drawn from personal experience, right?
Yes. I grew up here, and I went to the University of Haifa after leaving my village, Pekin, in the Galilee, and 6 years, 7 years in Haifa, I had love stories of my own, and then leaving the country in the U.S., I studied theater, and I was acting, and I was directing, and some of those memories never left me.
Yeah.
So
in you, and when I say drawn from personal experience, pardon me, would you say, because this play deals with, as you said, it's a love story, that's something that's always beautiful, but in a scenario, in a situation that makes it almost impossible, would you say that that type of intimacy between, Jews and Arabs, a personal intimacy, is it possible, or will the system, and that's, I'm assuming, what the play deals with, that's something that's always going to break it down?
Yes, it is possible. Once you take that third element out, which in a way is steps in between them. In my own personal story, that third element was her mother.
It's always is.
It's not just your personal story. Don't worry. And my husband's not watching right now.
Yeah.
Yes,
but in the play, it's the system. It's just the situation that we are in. You know, there's two enemies. They've been in conflict for a long time, and it's not easy, but it is possible. I guess the play proves that love is possible until the third element is stepping in.
Stepping out, and this is the first time also that in the theater in Haifa, which is an Arab-speaking theater,
yes,
that this play is going to be presented. Is going to put on in Hebrew, actually, right?
Yes, it is in Hebrew, and I insisted on translating it from English to Hebrew.
Why?
I wanted to talk to the Israeli audience. This is it's a very intimate play, but it's, you know, the background is a very political background, right, and I want to make sure we, as Palestinians, communicate with the Israeli audience too. And I think the artistic director, who's a volunteering artistic director in Al Midan Theater in Haifa, Adnan Tarabshi, agreed with me against all odds and against some of the board members to translate it to Hebrew and present it for the first time in their theater history in Hebrew.
It's commendable, because you said one of the most important lines at the beginning of your answer, and that is, you know, you wanted to speak to the Israeli audience, and it is, I think, you know, when people talk, that's when progress is made. When, you know, when people stop talking, as we're seeing right now, clearly nothing moves on. What was the reaction when you wanted to bring it on in Hebrew in Al Midan Theater? And, you know, are you hoping that, you know, also the Arab audience is going to come and hear it in Hebrew?
Well, they have been coming. I mean, my goal is to have a mixed audience viewing it, and at the same time, both being aware that the other is sitting right next to him.
Right.
I assume that most Arabs in Israel, or most Palestinians, know Hebrew, and so far the audience has been mixed. Since opening night, it's been mostly Israelis because the publicity went out to them, and I think starting from the 23rd of October, the Arabic publicity will go out and then would bring both people in. And the reaction, the Palestinians are happy to know that they're sitting right next to them and listening to the harsh truth. Some of it is really hard to take, and it's a very honest piece. You know, we don't brush it out. We don't put makeup on it.
Yeah.
It's an honest, you know, heart-to-heart conversation between two people.
And as I want to hear the reaction of the audience at the end of the play, is it, well, first of all, is the play optimistic? I don't want you to give anything out. Is it optimistic or pessimistic?
It is optimistic. Some people disagree, but you know, it's on the last page. Yeah, it's very, very optimistic, I think, because to be honest with you, we can put a musical and, you know, leave the theater very happy, but we are left with a very dangerous situation in the Middle East all around us, including, you know, our own country here. It's a dangerous time, dangerous spot, and all attention, all eyes are on us, you know, everywhere around the world. And to not be honest with ourselves is really cheating ourselves. And the reaction has been, I don't know if I can say it in Hebrew, I know.
Say, I'll translate.
Chazak.
Very strong.
Meratek.
Yes. Fascinating.
V'koev.
And painful.
It's painful.
It is painful. I think that we could all agree. Finally, do you think that through art, you know, that through art one can bridge the differences between the people? Because it seems like nothing else has really worked. You know.
Well, I think we've been trying a lot and kind of kicking the can around too far ahead, and we're trying to reach to it, and we kick it again once we catch it. It's been a long path, you know, since 1948. That's 66 years, and nothing had happened. And I think people are just tired of living back to back in this country. I really think they're ready to face each other and say, okay, Tell me what you want, and tell me if my existence threatens yours. Can we live together? And the play faces this, and it does give an answer. You know, it keeps it open at the end. I mean, we don't give one specific answer, but we leave it to their imagination that it is possible.
Amen to that. And Hannah Edie, the playwright of Quieter Days, playwright and director, showing now at Al Midan Theater in Haifa in Israel. I truly, truly hope that, you know, your words will become reality, whatever you said to us here. And thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
This morning. You're kind of locked in the studio with us right now as we move to Gabi Tartakovsky.
Yes.
With everything else in
Everything
art.
else.
Yes, in art and culture. What else?
Yes, I'm starting with the biggest news in the music world and some heartbreaking news. Glastonbury Festival, the 2015 edition, sold out completely in less than 30 minutes.
That's it? In less 30 minutes? In less than 30 minutes, okay.
Less than 30 minutes, more than 150,000 tickets were sold out. And get this, we don't know what is the lineup yet. We don't know who is headlining Glastonbury, but people
are still...
People all over the world are still going for it, camping and fetching tickets for more than £200. The rumors are that Fleetwood Mac and or Queen will headline this year.
Queen minus Freddie?
Minus Freddie plus Adam Lambert, who's been touring with the Queen for the past years. As Adam Lambert.
As Adam Lambert, yes, yes. I mean, he
no mustache
really,
Freddie, yes.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can really top Freddie. I'm sorry, this is
that's
a very important point to me. I'm a huge Queen fan. Just letting you know, Gabi, for my next birthday. But that said, Adam Lambert as Freddie. What if they, what if then they come out with, headlining it as Iglesias or something like that?
No, it never happened. But you know what? The closest they got was last year. Dolly Parton was a surprised performer at Glastonbury. Glastonbury has a strange mix.
One has to be very high in order to basically...
She was embraced by the British public. We was not a big country fan, to say the least.
Yes.
But I wouldn't worry if you got the Glastonbury ticket. You can rest at ease because headliners in the previous years were Rolling Stones, U2, Beyonce, Metallica. Some doing in the same festival. Other festivals would be more than pleased to have just one of these names. Those names appear on the same bill, which makes Glastonbury the biggest music festival.
Like the Woodstock of the 21st century in some ways.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
An annual one.
Yes, an annual one. And it was originally established in the early 70s as a blues and folk festival in southeast England, and it blew up throughout the years.
Oh, okay. And what else do I not have tickets for?
You don't need a ticket.
To? Nice.
Not yet.
Okay.
To watch Baywatch, the movie. Yes, the beloved, scandalous TV series of the 90s is coming back as a feature film, and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, confirmed he will star in the Baywatch film. He posted an Instagram of him.
Hold on. I'm having a hard time digesting this. First of all, if I can only say, well, thank God there's a film now.
Yes. 20 minutes later.
20 minutes later, yes. So there is going to be a Baywatch film because fans demanding this?
People have this fascination with the swimming suits and people running all over the beach.
Yeah, with chicks and swimming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Dwayne Johnson confirmed, he said, I'm sorry, this is my bitch.
Oh my God.
This is his subtle way to confirm that he's starring.
That's what he said. This is my beach,
yes,
bitch.
He posted this on
Twitter.
No, on the Instagram.
Wow.
Now the film will.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, will revolve
there's
around.
The Rock.
Yes, solid as a rock. Now there's a lifeguard.
No, and first of all, what is Baywatch without David Hasselhoff? I asked you that.
Yes, and Hasselhoff still didn't comment about this project. Neither did Pamela Anderson. I'm sure there will be some surprising cameos.
They must come and train the new guard.
Sweet cameo money is heading Hasselhoff's way. Absolutely.
Hasselhoff, who, by the way, you might not know it, is a huge music star. In Deutschland.
Yes.
Yeah, wirklich. Yes, okay. I personally am very happy Baywatch is coming back as a movie. I don't think there's going to be Oscars.
Maybe Razzies.
Razzies, exactly. Thank you for that. Okay, what else?
Well, we've discussed Baywatch. Yes. Now get this. Dallas.
I know.
Yes.
Okay.
The revamped Dallas
Right.
by TNT is canceled after 3 seasons. It was heading off to a promising start. They even incorporated Larry Hagman, who is J.R. Ewing's actual death in the series. It got great ratings, but still not enough to carry the series. It also featured some like Patrick Duffy was in the original cast.
I mean, I have to admit, I never really saw it because I mean, sometimes I think, why really take these great masterpieces of the past?
Yes. We know who shot JR. We know there's oil in Texas. It's been done. So now TNT is wising up.
It's wising up. I mean, if they resurrected Dallas, I'm just thinking, what else was there? There was Dynasty?
Dynasty, yes.
That hasn't been resurrected
No, but
yet,
it was recently finally released on DVD, so you can actually binge
waiting,
watching.
Gabi.
Yes, I'm having my Alexis fix at the moment.
Every single day.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sporting her hair.
I'm sure.
But if you can see, yeah. So, what else?
Speaking of resurrection, David Lynch hints at a Twin Peaks comeback. Yes. Hints. Well, David Lynch is all about hints.
Hints. I mean, not when it comes to quinoa. But, but so wait, this is the tweet. Dear Twitter friends,
yes,
that
the gum you like is about to come back. This is a reference to a dream sequence, one of the countless, tiring, challenging dream sequence in Twin Peaks.
Oh, we're going to argue, honey.
Yes.
We're going to argue.
Yeah, Dale Cooper had some strong coffee in Twin Peaks, but still, those dream sequences were
I'm sorry,
a
I have
bit
an
of a
artist
blur.
right here next to me. Huh? Come on, Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks was great.
It was.
Thank you. Twin Peaks was like a monumental. There's so
Still.
many. The Killing tries to be Twin Peaks, failing miserably.
Yes.
But
people still remember Laura Palmer and the
Fire Dance
and the fire and the entire mystery which captivated this small town America in early 90s. So both David Lynch and another co-creator and writer posted tweets simultaneously with the same quote. And now people are in a frenzy.
But as you said, hinting, we don't know for sure. And, but you made the right point. It can't be very long and tiring. That's it for us, folks. Don't forget to tune in. Next morning, also check us on Facebook, Twitter, I24 News Morning Edition, and join us tomorrow morning for another edition to start your day as you should every single day.